No one looked up when I entered. Not even my mother, who always used to straighten the silverware if someone so much as sneezed near the dining room. That night, she didn't even blink. I stood at the threshold of the family dining hall. Yes, their hall, the one with the chandelier bought in Florence, the one they only open twice a year. The smell of roasted duck and truffle butter hit me before anything else. It used to make my stomach rumble. Tonight, it just made it turn. My heels tapped against the marble floor as I walked in, the sound swallowed quickly by the thick tension in the room. Candlelight flickered off gold-rimmed plates. Wine glasses tilted in casual arrogance. My brother chuckled at something my uncle said, and the laughter slid around the room, avoiding me like I was invisible. They'd started dinner without me. Not a seat left, not even a folded napkin in my direction. I stood still, hands lightly clasped, pretending I was fine, pretending I didn't notice the empty space between my father's toast and my name. "Did she really come?" whispered Aunt Marianne, just loud enough for me to hear. "God, look at her. She always had a flair for drama," my cousin snorted without turning around. "Can't believe she showed up in that." My dress was navy blue. Simple. Clean lines. Tailored. Nothing flashy. Nothing disrespectful. But it wasn't what they would have chosen. It didn't sparkle, didn't scream family tradition. It didn't have the corseted back or floral lace like my sister-in-law's. "Maybe she didn't get the message," my brother said under his breath. His voice wasn't angry, it was bored, as if my absence would have been easier, more convenient. I didn't speak. I just looked across the table at my father's face. He didn't look back. Instead, he lifted his wine and said, "To William, for taking over the firm with dignity and excellence. You've made us proud, son." Glasses clinked. Cheers. Applause. Not a single I met mine. No one asked how I was. No one asked why I was late, not that I was. The invitation said 8 o'clock. I arrived at 7:58. They just didn't wait. The chair closest to the door remained pulled back slightly, as if someone had once considered me, and then decided against it. A waiter moved past me, careful not to touch my arm, as if I might contaminate the china. I stepped aside, barely breathing. My throat felt tight, but my face didn't show it. I'd practiced that mask too many times to falter now. There were name cards on the table. I wasn't on it. Not anywhere. As I turned to leave, I caught the reflection of my sister in the mirror beside the fireplace. She was watching me. Not out of guilt, just to confirm I'd finally taken the hint. I walked out of that room, knowing they wanted me gone. Knew they thought I didn't belong. That I was the embarrassment, the missing one. But they had no idea how far I'd gone, or what I had become. And that, tonight, someone else would. They always said I ran away. But I didn't run. I walked, steady, calm, one step at a time. I packed my things in silence the night I turned 19. Folded every shirt with the precision they never thought I'd learn. I left a note, short and blunt, "I'm not coming back." No one came after me. In this family, you were either chosen or you were dismissed. William, my older brother, was the chosen one. The heir, the lawyer, the golden boy. Every trophy he won was displayed in the hallway cabinet. Every story he told at dinner got laughter, applause, pride. I was the mistake. The girl with too many opinions and not enough patience for champagne smiles and veiled insults. Growing up, I always felt like the extra chair no one knew what to do with. I was 16 when I first realized it. We were at my cousin Elizabeth's wedding. Everyone was dressed in pastels, smiling like plastic dolls. I wore navy blue even then, not to stand out, just because it was the only dress I owned that fit right. My mother pulled me aside and hissed, "Why can't you try to blend in for once?" Her voice was sharp and sweet, like the champagne she held. That was the beginning of the end. While William interned at Dad's firm during summers, I worked double shifts at a bookstore downtown. They mocked me for it. "So romantic," William would say, smirking. "Bet you spend more time with dust than people." He wasn't wrong. But the dust didn't judge me. When I didn't apply to law school, they called it a phase. When I skipped Christmas the next year, they said I was dramatic. And when I stopped calling altogether, they didn't even notice. What they never knew, or bothered to ask, was where I went after. I enlisted, not out of rebellion, not even out of patriotism. I just needed structure, clarity, a place where names were earned, not inherited. The recruitment office was cold, fluorescent, sterile. But for the first time, someone looked me in the eye and saw potential, not a burden. "You ever hold a weapon?" the officer asked. "No," I replied, "but I can hold my ground." And I did. Basic training nearly broke me. The first week, I cried in the shower every night. Not from pain, from silence. It was the first time no one spoke to me like I was broken. They yelled, barked orders, made me run until my lungs burned, but they never looked at me like I was unworthy. I rose fast. I followed rules. I stayed invisible when needed, unshakable when not. I was good, too good, good enough to be noticed. By the time I was 23, I had passed every evaluation for federal intelligence work. That's when I stopped using my last name. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was Ajanar, just an initial, clean, unattached. I lived in shadows, but I walked tall. Surveillance, infiltration, linguistics. I became fluent in silence. I learned to enter a room without a sound, to disappear without a trace. I saw things I can't describe, lived through things I can't explain. All while they toasted to William's third courtroom victory, posted photos of family brunches, pretended I was just a sad little ghost who faded away. Once, years later, my father's name popped up in a database I was scanning. Not as a suspect, just background noise. I stared at it for a moment. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have opened the file, checked his business affiliations, his phone records. I didn't. Not out of love, just disinterest. They had become irrelevant to the world I now operated in. Until the dinner. The invitation came weeks ago. Cream-colored, thick cardstock, the family crest embossed in gold. I almost tossed it without reading. But something in me paused. Maybe it was the date, the exact anniversary of the day I left. Maybe it was the note at the bottom, handwritten in my mother's perfect script. "Please dress formally." It wasn't a peace offering. It was a test. They still thought I was beneath them. Still assumed I lived in some tiny apartment, alone, bitter, hungry for attention. They had no idea what I really did, what rooms I'd entered, what walls I'd wired, what operations I'd led. They didn't know about the contact in D.C. who briefed the president directly and still called me for clearance. They didn't know about the times I sat across from foreign diplomats under different names, different accents, different lives. To them, I was still a girl in the bookstore. To the bureau, I was a weapon. And tonight, that world was about to brush against theirs for the first time. And it would leave a mark. The second toast of the night was even louder than the first. My father stood again, a smug pride curling his lips. His gold cufflinks caught the candlelight as he raised his glass, this time with more wine and less patience. "To family," he said, pausing just long enough to let the words sour on his tongue. "To those who stayed, who never forgot where they came from." The implication hit me like a slap across the room. No one needed to look at me. The silence after his words did that job just fine. A few cousins smiled into their glasses. My mother didn't flinch. My brother, he leaned back, elbow on the chair, watching the chandelier as if I wasn't even there. I felt the heat rise under my collar, but my face didn't move. I didn't blink. Years of fieldwork taught me how to stand still when surrounded by people who wanted you gone. "I hope we're not out of wine," someone joked at the far end. Laughter. More laughter. I didn't say a word. Then came the speech. It was William's big night, after all. A formal dinner to celebrate his new role, managing partner at the family firm. The firm I was never allowed to intern at. The firm, my father said, wasn't a place for girls who couldn't follow rules. William rose, adjusted his suit, and cleared his throat like a man preparing to run for office. "Thank you, everyone," he began, with that same rehearsed charm he used to win high school debates. "I owe everything I am to the people in this room. You made me who I am." He looked around, eyes sweeping from left to right, skipping me entirely. "And for those who drifted," he added, his smirk subtle but surgical, "may they find their way home. Or at least peace." The room hummed with approval. I stood near the corner now, close to the window. No one had offered me a seat, and I hadn't asked. I wasn't hungry for their food. I was here for something else, though I wasn't quite sure what. Closure? Clarity? Maybe I just wanted to see if the years had changed them. They hadn't. The waiter refilled my glass without a word, eyes lowered. He was young, nervous, probably warned not to make trouble. Then came the mistake. A small one. A whisper. "She's still living off bookstore money, huh?" My cousin Chloe muttered to her fiancé. He chuckled. "Or government aid. Isn't that what they do when they vanish for a few years?" That was when the front gates opened. At first, no one noticed. The dinner chatter drowned out the low hum of an approaching vehicle. Then headlights sliced through the garden's darkness. A sleek black SUV rolled up the gravel path, the kind of car you don't buy, the kind assigned by departments that don't advertise. Voices quieted. Forks paused midair. The driver's door opened. A tall man stepped out. No tie. Military posture. Serious eyes. He didn't look at the house. He looked at me. Every muscle in my body tensed. Not from fear, from instinct. You don't get casual visits from that man unless something's happened. Or something's about to. He walked past the hedges, up the stone path, through the open door, into the dining room. Every eye turned to him now. He didn't flinch. He didn't ask permission. He walked like he had every right to be there. And when he stopped, he faced the head of the table, my father. "I'm looking for Agent R," he said, voice sharp and calm. Blank stares. Then confusion. "Agent who?" my father asked, offended by the interruption, by the tone, by everything. The man turned his head toward me, and for the first time that night, the room followed. I met his eyes. He gave a slight nod, respectful. Measured. "Ma'am," he said, addressing me directly, "we've secured the perimeter. Director Langley requests your presence." Now. Silence. Complete. Hollow. Echoing silence. I didn't move yet. Instead, I looked at William. His mouth was slightly open, like a man watching a car crash he didn't understand. My mother's hand froze around her wineglass. "I'm sorry, who are you?" my father barked, trying to reclaim the moment. The man ignored him. His focus stayed on me. "Ma'am, your team is en route. Tacticals already deployed. We just need your authorization to proceed." And then, the final blow. Another man entered, older, gray-templed, wearing a suit that said state-level authority. His tone was crisp, controlled. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, scanning the room. "This is a classified operation. If we're delayed, it compromises everything. We were told she'd be present." I stepped forward, heels firm against the marble. "No problem," I said quietly. I looked at my family, all of them, one by one. And I said, "I own this house." Gasps. The agent closest to me added, "Yes, ma'am. Properties registered under the alias as instructed. All assets transferred per your last clearance protocol." Their faces turned white. The family estate. Bought out. Silently. Legally. Years ago. They never even checked. And now they were eating dinner at my table, in a house they thought was still theirs, to which I had granted temporary use. William sat down without meaning to. My mother's lips parted like she was about to speak, but no sound came. I turned to the agents and gave a single nod. "Let's go." And just like that, I walked past the people who had erased me. And not one of them dared call me back. The night air hit me like a second truth, cold, sharp, undeniable. I walked down the stone steps with steady steps, the hem of my dress brushing the gravel as the black SUV door swung open ahead of me. The two agents flanked me quietly, respectfully, their presence like shadows that moved with intention. Not a word was spoken, but behind me, in that golden-lit dining room, chaos had erupted. I didn't look back. The vehicle door closed behind me with a solid click. Inside, the lights were dim. A laptop was already open on the center console. The screen glowed with live feeds, coordinates, maps, personnel locations, a silent orchestra of a mission in motion. My mission. My team. "We're set to launch in T-minus 40 minutes, the driver said, eyes never leaving the road as we rolled out of the estate gates. "Director Langley wants to confirm extraction protocol with you before the green light." "Pull up the recon file," I replied, voice calm. My hand slid across the interface like muscle memory. "Let's confirm the southern perimeter. Last time, they used the creek bed to evade infrared." "Yes, ma'am." They called me ma'am now. Not out of courtesy, but protocol, rank, field clearance. Not even 5 years ago, I was the ghost of the family. Tonight, I was the one moving pieces across a board my father didn't even know existed. But the car stopped. It didn't slow down. It stopped. I looked up sharply. Outside, headlights from another car shone across us. My pulse spiked until I saw who was walking toward the SUV. It was William, alone. The expression on his face was like something torn, shock trying to wear the clothes of dignity. The driver glanced at me. Should I? No. Let me. I opened the door. William stopped just short of the vehicle, his eyes darting between me and the agent behind me. For the first time in years, he looked unsure. No confidence. No courtroom swagger. I didn't know, he said quietly. I stepped out, slow and deliberate. No, I replied, voice even. You didn't care to. He looked away, shame rising in waves. You bought the house, he asked. Why didn't anyone tell us? I almost laughed. Because I didn't want them to. That house wasn't about you. Or them. It was about me. About never again needing your permission. The silence between us stretched, thick, heavy. He looked at the agent again. So this is real. You're not pretending. I raised an eyebrow. Do you think federal agents play dress-up at family dinners? William's mouth opened, then closed. I could see the years crashing over him. Every cruel word he ever said. Every dinner where he laughed while I sat alone. And now he stood in front of me, small, confused, reduced. You left and became this, he said, gesturing vaguely. Why didn't you ever tell us? You made it very clear, I said slowly, that there was no place for me at your table. So I built my own. He nodded slowly, swallowed hard. I thought he might apologize, but he didn't. Instead, he said, They're shaken. Dad's in the study. He's angry. I tilted my head. Good. Maybe for once. He'll ask why. William looked down. I didn't think you'd ever come back. I didn't, I said. Not really. He wanted to say more, but the driver called from the front. Ma'am, Director Langley is on the line. Urgent. I turned my back on William. Didn't wait for a goodbye. Inside the SUV again, headset on, I listened to my superior's calm voice crackle through the channel. Your discretion at the estate was noted. Are you ready for green light? Yes, I answered. We proceed as planned. Understood. An agent are... Yes, Director. Hell of an entrance. I smiled. Just barely. Wasn't planned. Just overdue. We drove off. The estate faded behind me, a silhouette against old memories. And inside that golden room, I knew my family sat in stunned silence, piecing together the life they never bothered to ask about. I didn't need their approval anymore. But the revelation hung in the air like a verdict. Not revenge. Not retribution. Just truth, spoken loud enough that it could never be unheard. And that was more than enough. As the SUV cut through the winding roads outside the estate, I leaned back into the leather seat, the adrenaline still pulsing under my skin. Not from the mission ahead, but from the one I had just completed. Because tonight, for the first time, I wasn't hiding. I stared out the window as trees blurred past in the dark, thinking of that dining room. Of the silver cutlery, the laughter that used to sting, the glasses raised to names that never included mine. I remembered standing in doorways I was never invited through, smiling when it hurt, shrinking myself to fit into a mold that was never made for me. And now they knew. They knew who I was, what I had become. Not because I screamed it into their faces, not because I demanded they see me, but because the world outside our family had already recognized me. And that recognition, real and earned, arrived like thunder in the quiet chapel of their self-importance. I thought it would feel like triumph. It didn't. It felt like silence. Deep and hollow. Not a victory, just an ending. Because the truth is, I didn't want them to grovel. I didn't need their regret or their apologies. That part of me, the part that waited for their love, had died quietly years ago, somewhere between basic training and my first solo operation. What remained was purpose and solitude. I pulled out my phone, a secure line encrypted. There were 3 missed messages from Tactical, one from Ops Command, and then one unexpected, unknown contact. I saw the footage. You handled yourself with restraint, Proud of you. I knew who it was without checking. A retired field officer, now deep in intelligence liaison. He was one of the few who knew my full story, knew the name I had stopped using, knew the ache of being forgotten by those who were supposed to know you best. I didn't reply. Some things don't need words. We reached the facility in under an hour, a temporary command post with reinforced walls and satellite uplink. The mission briefing began the moment I stepped inside. Maps were projected, comms were distributed, timelines drawn. I was back in my element, back in the silence that didn't hurt. And yet, between directives and coordinates, I saw flashes, not of danger, not of targets, but of faces. My sister, staring at me across the mirror with a mix of envy and disbelief. My mother, fingers tight around a wine glass, realizing the woman she erased was now the one they answered to. And my father, sitting at the head of the table in a house that no longer belonged to him. I wondered if he finally saw me. And if he did, what exactly did he see? I didn't know. And that was the saddest part. After the briefing, I stepped out into the open air. The night was quieter here, crisper. Stars above blinked like eyes that had seen too much. I stood there for a long time, breathing in the stillness. And I thought about legacy. Not the kind etched on plaques or carved into mahogany desks, but the kind built in shadows. The kind that doesn't need a family name to stand. I had no photos of me on family mantels, no seat at holiday tables, no letters from home. But I had something else, something they could never take, and never even understand. I had earned respect in a world that didn't care about pedigree. And still, beneath all of it, there was a small, persistent ache. Because a part of me had once wanted to be chosen, to be loved without needing to prove my worth, to be seen not for what I could do, but for who I was. But that never happened, and now it never would. As I turned back toward the command center, I heard a soft ping on my comms. A voice. Calm. Familiar. We're ready, Commander. Waiting on your go. Commander. That's who I was now. Not the forgotten daughter. Not the one who left. Not even Agent R. I was Commander. I gave the order, and the mission began. But somewhere deep in the quiet, between the silence of strategy and the noise of movement, a memory stayed with me, soft, sharp, and final. That night, my sister finally looked me in the eyes. But by then, she didn't recognize who she was looking at. And neither did I.